going.
Live?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Give people a few minutes to jump on. And then you're sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody on yet?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
4 people.
4 people. All right, good job. So, gonna start the haircut. If you're watching and you would like to share this, please go ahead and hit the share button so we can get some more people in here. Gonna work on kind of a longer shag type of shape. So something that's pretty concave, shorter through the interior, maintaining the length on the outside of the haircut. And then I'll kind of walk you through the sectioning and stuff that I've got, the panels, just so you can see exactly kind of my thought process. I just wanted to get this first section kind of ready to go for whenever we feel there's a sufficient amount of people to start. Where are we at now?
$11.
All right, cool. We'll go ahead and get going. Okay, so working on Rachel's hair. So I've just kind of what?
No, nothing. It just doesn't show my caption when I share it. It just says nothing.
So I've just paneled off everything so far. So really worked just the center division line, and then worked a panel through the back that kind of isolates the crown. I feel like this is kind of a problem area where you get a lot of growth patterns. So isolated that to work on that separately, and just kind of a rounded shape, and then 3 panels as opposed to just doing it in one big one. This will just help me to kind of isolate and maintain the most control. So for this haircut, I'm going to start directly in the center, and what we're going to work is a kind of rounded shape that hugs the head, so sits along the shape of the head. And each subsequent section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot off of this point, and so each one is going to go from round, and as I work around, it's going to start to get a bit flatter and then work longer as I go out. So what I want to do is really maintain the length through the bottom, but I also don't want to remove so much length from the top that I make the bottom look all thin and kind of see-through. So just setting my guide. Just following the shape of the head here. So however you want to kind of say that, everybody has different language. Some people say that it's a round cutting line because it follows the shape of the head. Some people would say it's a 90-degree. All of those things are correct. I'm not here to tell you which terminology to use. I think it's more about control and how you execute. So I was a little bit long for the length choice that I wanted to make, so I'm just going back and doing it again. So it's going to create that kind of shorter internal shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pivot off of this division line that we have. And then I'm going to overdirect everything into section 1. So 2 is going to go to 1. So just pushing it all the way over. So section 3, we'll do the same thing. We'll utilize section 1 as the guide. Now, I said that it's going to get longer as we go out, and the reason for that is not because of the way that I hold it. As I'm pivoting, I'm not going to turn and then make it go longer this way. What I'm using is just the natural shape of the head. So right here in the front, there's less hair to go, and so it's just kind of rounded. But the longer that I work around in the shape, the more hair is gonna have to come from here to reach the guide. So it's just gonna get longer through kind of the natural effect of rotating around the head. So sometimes we use the head shape to make the decisions for us, and then sometimes we use our finger angles or our cutting lines depending on the technique that we want to use. So 3, gonna push really far over into 1. Do we have any questions yet?
Mm-mm.
Great. Guys, if you have any questions, please type them out. Still just pivoting off of that section. So now we're going to start working down into this kind of the side hairline. So with each section, we start to see a little bit more hair kind of have to travel a little further to get there. The further the hair has to travel to the guide, the longer the result's going to be. When you're working a pivoting section, you kind of get these 2 kind of distinct lengths, because you get the length that sits right up close to the pivot, and it's pretty much the same, but as you fan out, the hair tends to kind of do this, and so now this hair has to travel further to get to this point. So everything through here is about the same, and then it starts to really kind of get longer as you work around. Spray it down, keep the dampness consistent. Just moving these clips out of the way so I can kind of work as clean as possible. So pivoting off of that same spot. You know, for something like this, haircutting in general, I think the grooming is really important. So just keeping everything super clean, everything that I'm not working on out of the way. Also, this is, you know, for instructional purposes. So if we're working a little slower, it's because we want to get a lesson across versus me just doing a haircut. So if this was just me working, I might not work at such a kind of slow, deliberate pace. If I feel like I can control the hair, I might take larger sections. Really pushing the hair over and up. So not only am I over directing, but I'm also elevating. And I'm not going to keep working this way all the way through the back because I don't want to remove all this length, but around the front of the face, I really want to kind of see that shape, you know, which like a shag is known for, these kind of face framing kind of layers that kind of cascade around. So the focal point of the haircut is really the front. That's why I started in that area. Clips coming out. No questions?
Mm-mm. Aaron Separate put a heart.
Hi, Aaron. Always count on her to watch. So I want to be really diligent with the wet shape because I don't plan on doing a lot of refining. I really want to kind of let the natural texture of the hair take over. So there's not a lot of room for error when it comes to the way that we're going to kind of execute the haircut. So what?
It switched to my face.
Oh, did it? Oh, that's great. All right.
Oops. Sorry, guys.
All right, so working off the same thing. Now, if I wanted, I could take all of the section and just kind of pull it all up to it, because it is a stationary guide, but I don't feel like that's how I'm gonna have the most control. So, again, that's the most important. If you think that you could execute something like this and kind of have that amount of control by condensing, you know, to save time, then by all means, I think that that's acceptable. I just think for me, it's just easier to kind of work in a more deliberate manner.
Tina Maxey says hello, and so does Diane Marshall.
Hello, both of you. Thanks for watching. So after every section that I cut, I'm kind of combing it down and looking at the length and just kind of deciding, you know, how far back I want to go with that. Her hair's not exceptionally long right now, so I don't have to worry about, like, really, you know, this isn't going to reach, and, you know, so I'm not going to take off too much length. It's more about the density of the hair that I'm trying to preserve as opposed to just the length of it. So,
Carlina McAllister says hi.
hello.
And Lisa Jones says that she loves this.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. So kind of working to separate the front from the back now. So I've really kind of worked around into this point of the ear. And I'm just kind of examining. So, you know, I think that it's good to go into something with a plan, but then you have to kind of let things kind of develop sometimes. And so I'm going to kind of lift this up and see how much length would come off, and if I can decide if that's too much. And if it is, then I can kind of adjust my technique. So, you know, if I pull this up here and kind of use that, then look at all that length that we're going to lose. Okay, so we don't want to do that, right? Because a lot of this on the interior is going to get cut quite a bit shorter. So what I can do is I can make a choice to preserve that and just let it sit kind of as a disconnection, you know, through the sides and into the back, because I know that a lot of this through the interior is going to be cut shorter. So sometimes it's not about necessarily completing the entire thing. I think somebody said once to me that we get paid for the hair that we leave on the head, not what we cut off. So.
Diane Marshall says that they signed in late, and what kind of cut are you showing?
It's just kind of a shag, I guess is the way that we would describe it. So right now, just like a rounded kind of layer that's shorter through the interior, kind of gets longer as it goes to the exterior. Really kind of preserving the length, creating something that kind of sits around the face, and then some shorter length on the top that you can have some kind of play with. So that's about it for side one on these panels underneath.
Tina says that they love you helping us. I'm assuming they meant everybody.
So when I work into the opposite side, what I want to do is go back to that same spot, take that original guide. So all this hair that I've already cut is going to be moved out of the way.
Lori Palomo says hello.
Hello. Thank you for watching. Please, guys, if you have any questions, hop in. If you sign in late, just know that this does live on the Facebook indefinitely, so you can kind of always go back and watch it again and play catch up, just so we're not having to repeat the same information over and over again. So just taking that section, going to bring everything to that same point, just like I did on side one. Maintaining that consistent grooming, going back to the same position every time so that I make sure my over direction and my elevation is the same. 2 more sections on this side.
Danielle Minery gave a wave.
Hello? So just kind of checking that length again. Just again, making sure that I'm not getting too far into the perimeter on either side.
Jamie Grubbs asked what kind of shears are your favorite?
Currently what I'm using is a Hikari, new Shikara, that's the model. But I like a lot of different shears. BMAC makes a really nice scissor. Mizutani, there's a bunch of them out there that are really nice. It's just kind of a personal preference, I think. Not everybody's gonna kind of have the same experience with every pair of scissors. It all just depends on how they fit in your hand and the kind of maintenance that they require. I really like these because they're very small. And I don't just mean like lengthwise, because they're a 5-inch scissor, but they're very, just the mechanics of them are very small. So the blade itself is very small, the way that they feel. I don't like a big chunky scissor. I don't feel like I can control it as much that way. Alright, so that's all for the kind of front panel. So we've just really kind of pieced the fringe out with that, so now I've got like a nice layer that sits on the inside. Okay.
She was just looking at her hair as you picked it up.
I'm excited.
So we're not going to do too much with the kind of, the haircut that's already pre-existing through the back, because we like the density that it is on the bottom. We just want to kind of remove the top. So I've just layered through the front, kind of given it a little bit of kind of movement through the front area, and then we're just going to leave this. So now everything else is just interior layering.
Carlina McAllister said, I have a client that always brings in a picture of Joan Jett from the 70s, and this seems like an updated version of that.
Yeah, we had that conversation before, so that's kind of the go-to standard for what you would call a shag, I guess. So you can see her hair is quite long through the top, so it's been a long time. So a lot of this length has to come off. Sometimes that can be a little bit like intimidating. Even though I've been doing it for a long time, like you don't want to like cut off so much and then somebody not be into what you're doing. So you just have to really rely on the consultation.
Lori asks if we can see the partings one more time before you start getting into it.
Yes. So I don't know if you can. Really, the only reason I broke it up like this, guys, is because I just didn't want to have to control all this hair. So when I parted it, I worked kind of where I felt like the fringe should stop, okay, to all the way back, and then it's just a rounded section, basically above the parietal ridge. Oh.
Yeah.
And then I isolated the crown area just because that's always a spot that kind of has problems just because of growth patterns. And then these two I just sectioned this way so it wasn't one big section. I'm just going to work a middle parting on this and elevate it up and create a different round line that kind of overlaps this one slightly, and then pull everything to the center. And then in the back, I'm just gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna round it. But because there's so much hair, I just wanted to have more control. So that's the only reason that I parted it off like this. It's not necessarily like part of the design. I could have just done a circle and then just taken one long section through. I just felt like it was going to be more work that way.
Claire Parrish is watching.
Hey, Claire. So I'm just going to take a section through the center. Okay.
Rose says hi from Florida.
Hello. So everything I'm not working on, I'm just going to twist out of the way and then kind of clip off. I just want to have that there. So now I'm working into this part of the haircut. So what I'm looking at here is just the way that her natural growth pattern is. It's going to fall forward as it is, right? And then this is going to fall forward and kind of over into the side length, which is what we want to free up. So all of this is going to get over directed. So what you're going to get is this kind of natural fall forward and this natural kind of fan out this way. So lengthwise, what I'm thinking through the top is instead of connecting it through here, because I just think that, that would be too short. That would be almost like a crop through the top of it. I don't want to do that. I just want to help add this into it so there's a disconnection that kind of creates more movement in the haircut. So what I'm going to do is just lift this section straight up and kind of find out where that length is that it's going to hit and cut it about that length where it almost matches up with where the fringe is going to lay. It's always better to kind of cut a little bit, right? So cut and then let it fall. So with the jump, that's just slightly longer, right? So I can take just a tad bit more off and feel comfortable with that. So we'll try that again, just kind of cut, and then we'll just test that length. So that's good. So I like that, where that's falling. So just bringing everything straight up and cutting it parallel to the floor, and also kind of the flat of the head on the top.
Corinda Stout says hi.
Hello. So what we're going to get now is this kind of disconnection from the front and the back. So when I comb it down, it all just kind of blends together, right? So all of this just looks like a fringe. But when I lift it, these two panels are very distinct. So you get this like shorter bit that's underneath, okay? Let that kind of fall away. And then this that falls over the top of it. So when it's blow dried or when it's, you know, worn kind of in its natural state, which is what we're going to do today, this will all just kind of, you know, dance around and move with each other. So I think it just gives options. If I were to cut it all the same length, then it's just going to fall, and that's the way that it's going to sit. There's not going to be any kind of dynamics to the haircut. So just taking a parallel section to that. Now again, everything's going to the same point, so if you feel comfortable working a technique like this and kind of pushing everything over and doing it all at once, then by all means go ahead. For me, I just like to have the control. I'm more concerned with the result than I am the amount of time it takes me to cut it.
Rose says, you always do beautiful haircuts and you explain it so well. Thank you for taking your time and explaining it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So there's not very much left. So now I feel comfortable enough kind of grabbing all of this and pushing it up. So again, it's not the same every time. Sometimes, depending on the density of hair, the client I'm working on, I can kind of make those choices to condense the work.
Kara Coy asks what kind of cut you're doing.
It's a kind of a shag of sorts. If you missed kind of the overview, just know that this stays online. The full video will stay on Facebook, so you can always go back and watch it again. Not that I don't want to tell you, we don't want to say the same information over and over again. So now look, so if I comb this forward, that hair through the top of the section really wants to fall there, but then the hair on the side starts to kind of break up a bit and kind of fall where it naturally wants to go. You can't fight growth pattern. You can work with it and you can try to make it like work for you, but this hair over here is gonna fall here all the time. You know, if she blow dries it really nice, like then it might stay for a little bit, but as soon as it gets wet again, or you put a different kind of like style into it, it's always gonna go back to where it wants to live. So we always try to cut hair that way, and it's kind of natural position. So just kind of opening the layers up a bit. So really what's happening is you get a bit more layer through the front, kind of opens the face up, and then it keeps kind of the density through the back. And I think that's kind of an important characteristic of this kind of haircut. So working in side 2, same thing. I'm going to stand on the same side. I'm just coming over here to take the section. I want to make sure that it's consistently damp with the other side. Somehow I have the only continuous spray bottle in the world that doesn't actually continuously spray. So just taking that middle section again. And then it's mirroring section on the opposite side. And then taking that hair that I'm not cutting and just putting the clip on it just to make sure that it stays separate from the hair underneath. So if you wanted to work a certain way, like I can obviously take this hair that I've already cut and kind of comb it out of the way and then lay it over. So just keep a really clean kind of workspace and allow me to know exactly where I'm going and not get lost.
Carlina McAllister asks if you are an instructor.
I am not an instructor anymore. I have been in the past. Rachel is actually one of my students. So it was Maddie who's holding the camera. But no, currently I just educate for Privé and do independent education and work in the salon that we have. Kind of do a little bit of everything. But no, I'm not working in a school currently. So just elevating up.
Kayla Perez from the school says, long time no see. Hello.
Hello? From our school?
Mm-hmm.
What up? So, just taking another parallel section to that. Clipping off the hair that I'm not going to use. Going back to the same spot. So, hair cutting is all about consistency, and it's just kind of repetition, doing the same thing over and over again, making the same choices over and over again. And that's what will kind of dictate the results that I get. So much hair.
Did you forget?
It's like flying at me.
I warned him again before he started this.
Everyone's always shocked by the amount of hair that is there.
All right, last one.
Sanjoy says that they can't hear you, so maybe speak up a little bit more.
Oh, okay, great.
Diane Marshall asks if you're in the back section yet, or if these are still just the side panels.
Still, there's those two front side panels. So really just one big round section in the front.
The
No, I
back
have
ones.
not worked for the into the back yet. That'll be directly after this. So again, kind of comb that down, how it falls in the front, and then as we work around to the side, really now that I've got the hair tucked, you can kind of see the shape that we get, that kind of rounded shape. And then when we kick that out from behind the ear, you can see that disconnection. So just a lot of internal movement, especially through the front. We'll do the same thing in the back, but just keep the density back here. Kind of like the way that it's shaping up like that. So here's the back section. So my goal, what I'm going to do is just take a section through the center and then use this as my guide and then just follow the shape of the head. So there's a bunch of different ways that you could work here, right? We could take a center section and we could elevate everything straight up and cut a flat line that connects with this. So it like is shorter to longer, because this would have to travel further. That's one option. Actually, I might do that. I'm like looking at it. You know, or I could follow the shape of the head, and all that's going to do is it's just going to make this part sit closer to it. But just looking at the way that our growth pattern is going and how much hair it is, I think I'm going to actually just connect it through. So, calling an audible. So just a vertical section, right? So I'm placing each one on each side out of the way.
This is a good question. Carlina asks, do your models pick their cut, or is it your own creation they let you do?
It depends. You know, sometimes in this instance, she kind of knew what she wanted, so she gave me a general idea. She's also a hairdresser, so she knows how to explain what she wants really well, versus like somebody who came in who doesn't do hair can just kind of give me an explanation. Like we might have a little bit more, a longer consultation for that. But yeah, I mean, I went into this with an idea knowing what she wanted. Sometimes you get models that tell me to do whatever I want, and then that's a different situation. You know, if she, you know, would have told me that she wanted something that I don't think would have been suitable for her, then we would have had to have had that conversation.
It's happened before.
Yeah. Alright, so take that section through the middle, so you can see where that kind of interior length's going to hit. So you're really going to see a disconnection here. So this is small enough for me. Feel good about it, especially since I'm lifting everything as well. For me to just kind of take this in one shot. So over directing everything to the middle, in the back, just lifting it straight up, cutting a line parallel to the floor, and it just connects through to that first section on the interior from the front. So same thing on the opposite side, just going to go through and take my section. So we're just going to push everything to the middle. Alright, so now I'm just looking Kind of checking the natural fall, seeing how things work. Now what I am seeing is that I think the front's just a bit longer even in the length. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna kind of just comb everything to its natural fall. And then I'm just gonna take everything that was below the parietal right there in the front and then just over direct it forward and just kind of cut off some of this corner. Just because I think I do want it to push just a bit more. So really just looking at the way that the hair kind of falls. So this is a bit more visual work, I would say, as opposed to really super technical. So bringing it out, there's that kind of disconnection that we got, which is fine. I want that. What I don't want is so much of this. So I'm just gonna come out here and remove some of this corner. And then all this length that's in the front and into the back, I'm just gonna pull forward and connect into that line.
Lee gave you a thumbs up, and
Yep.
Rosemary gave you some hard eyes.
Nice. So this is just a bit more push back is all.
Charlie says, beautiful cut.
Thank you. So a lot of the things too, what I look at is like little details. So as I'm kind of combing the hair where it naturally wants to fall, what I'm seeing are these little hairs right here that kind of live in that corner of the hairline. And when I kind of comb it down, they just naturally kind of jump out at me. So what I'll do even before like refinement on things like that is just come in and kind of nip at them. And just see if I like the way that it, you know, kind of looks like that.
Jennifer says Cassandra Cutter is one of her mentors and that
Oh, cool.
she introduced her to you.
Yeah, Cassandra's great.
She loves your work. Daniel gave you a wave. And Calvin said that they just joined. And can you quickly go over the horizontal and vertical shapes?
Yeah, so just kind of breaking down, kind of a lot. So because there's two kind of distinct parts of the haircut. So a lot of disconnection involved. So what I did is through the front here, where you can kind of see this hair falling away, I cut a rounded shape that sat just along the front of the kind of the frontal bone there. And then I worked a pivoting section around and continued that shape, but utilizing the elevation, it got a little bit longer through the front. So rounded here into kind of a more like triangular type of shape. And then I took a section behind that and elevated it up and just cut like a kind of square line that was disconnected from the length underneath. And so what I got was this kind of veil that sat over the layering there and kind of falls into the fringe itself. And then in the back, I had like another kind of section that was just created off of the natural round of the head, kind of in the crown. And we took a vertical section there and elevated that up and connected it through to here and kept it flat like that. So didn't cut any of the perimeter through the back. And I'm just working into the front perimeter right now to kind of detail it out of it. It's kind of an overview. If it didn't quite get it, then again the session will stay on Facebook, so you can always go back and kind of revisit it. And that goes for any of these. They're always there.
Carlina says, my client would love this for a more shattered look. Would you use a razor or just point cut it? So if you want to
Yeah,
get
you
into
could
that.
Yeah, you could use a razor. You know, I think when you're working a layered shape like this, it's already going to be really piecey because of the amount of weight that we're removing. So you know, for me, I just prefer to use a scissor. I think a razor is a really amazing tool. It just never really clicked with me as something that I enjoyed kind of cutting with. So, but I think that the results would be fairly similar. You just have the ability with a razor you can kind of pick up and you can really kind of come in. I mean, I could do it with a scissor if I wanted to. But I always think about the technique. So if I'm elevating the hair and kind of layering it, I'm already creating this really kind of disheveled, loose, diffused look. So I don't know that I necessarily would need to razor it in that situation. Now, if it was a lower elevation and I really wanted to kind of piece it out, then it would probably be something I would maybe look into. I should do one of these with a razor one day and just see how it goes.
Chop your finger off.
I probably would. That's exactly what would happen, is I would just bleed. Spray down. I'm going to do a little bit of slide cutting just through the back to kind of connect the interior layer into the perimeter, and then we're going to put some product in it and diffuse it, but I'm not going to really like put a ton of product in it. I like the way that it's kind of looking now, and so I just want it to be this, not wet.
She's got a lot of hair next to her eyeball if you want to get it off her.
Better?
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm
Give
just
me that
looking,
look.
I'm just looking out for her, okay?
So what I've got through the back here is just this really, there's quite a bit of disconnection because we created a layer on the inside and then just, you can see it just kind of drops off really dramatically right there. So all I'm going to do is just bring this out and just kind of slide into it a bit. So that's kind of razor work-ish, I suppose. A lot of times I would do this dry, I think, if I was going to be blow drying it really straight. I would spend some time detailing it that way, but I'm not going to. We're just going to diffuse it. I think that's more of a realistic kind of styling that she's going to do. So not too much, just kind of softening that drop off. Alright, well, I'm grabbing the product if you want to give like a little walk around of kind of finished wet look. So I'm going to use the Privé Curl Cream. What I like about this is that it's really lightweight, but it does have quite a bit of memory to it. So I think memory is a good word instead of hold. It just helps the hair kind of go back to its natural state, as opposed to kind of forcing it to stay, because her hair's not curly, you know, so we're not using it to curl necessarily. It's just got a little bit of a kind of wave to it. And when I really get my hands in it and kind of scrunch it up, if I can use that outdated term, then, you know, I want a product that's going to kind of stick to it and allow it to dry that way, but also not make it super heavy and like, I don't know, like if I were to use like a mousse or, you know, a gel, it might kind of weigh it down. So I'm thinking very wash and wear, very kind of just everyday approach to it. So just going through and giving it a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a push. Hope everybody went out and voted today. Did your civic duties. And now the part you've all been waiting for. Do you have any statements, questions,
Nope.
or anything? I see a lot of writing on there.
Then I said it all. The guy's not out there with the cell phone anymore.
Like,
that?
that was so loud.
There was a guy out there
on the phone.
on the phone.
There was a lot of chatter around our salon.
Mhm.
It's broken.
What is?
Oh no, it's not. Dina said it looks great.
Thank you.
Or Dana. I may have said that wrong.
So just using like a sock diffuser, and it's staying close to the head. It's on high heat, high speed. So just enough to kind of quicken the process. You see a little bit of air come out. It blows it around a bit. I'm not super concerned with like keeping it. If it was like a curly-headed client, I would want a lower speed, because I wouldn't want the hair to be disrupted at all. But because it's just a wave and we want it to be kind of messy and lived in, then if it kind of falls apart a bit, that's okay. I just want it contained enough to where it'll retain the shape that the wave is set in. Unfortunately, there's not a way to speed this process up. You just have to do it. But so if you have any questions, now would be a good time, because I've already explained the diffusing part, and that's it.
Daniel said, great cut, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have flat wrapped this and ironed it for an hour and a half, and then refined it for an hour and a half. And then she never would have done that to her own hair. So it just kind of sometimes isn't really worth all that effort.
Dina asked, will this video be on your page to rewatch?
It'll be on the pre-made page to rewatch. Yes, so the one you're watching it on now, as soon as we're done, we will publish it. What?
How would you change the parting lines depending on thickness of hair for cutting?
How would I what?
Would you change the way that you parted it if her hair was a different level of thickness?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, it just kind of depends. It would depend on the growth pattern and like how dense the hair is. So, I don't know how I would change it because I'm not in that situation. I don't like to give general kind of answers for a process that I'm not working on, because that might lead to misinformation. So, just everybody's hair is different. Every situation is going to be different. So, but the technique will always be the same. So it'll always be layering or graduation or a line. You know, there's no tricks or anything that you're going to do something different. It's all the same stuff.
Rose asked if her hair was one length when you started the cut.
Pretty close. I mean, I think there was a little bit of kind of layering into it, but really just towards the ends, it was pretty long, all pretty even through the density through the whole thing. It's cool because it kind of works with her color, because like where the layers hit is right about where this kind of lighter ends start. Happy accidents.
She did that herself?
Huh?
She did that herself?
It's okay.
She is a hairdresser,
Whatever you
so
gotta
it is
do.
okay. Don't try that at home. Rose asked if this could be done on curly hair.
Curly hair?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't want to give general answers for hair that I'm not looking at, but if it was really curly, I would probably avoid it, just because if you think about like how short I cut this front piece, right? How much that's going to shrink up to the head. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it just kind of depends. You have to kind of base. Curly hair is a whole different, animal because of the way that it like shrinks up. So a lot of times when you cut a one length on curly hair, it ends up looking like graduation. And when you cut graduation on, it ends up looking like a layer. And if you cut a layer on it, then it's like this long at the top, and it kind of springs out. So it's not a one size fits all like description for a haircut.
Dina asked if you came up with this cut for this specific model, or have you done it many times?
I mean, I've done variations of it. I like to think that each cut that I do is somewhat unique. I mean, I don't follow a template, so I don't have like a group of like 6 haircuts that I go to. I think that's cheating the model or the client or whatever. And I think that there are some people out there that probably do have that. They're like, oh, the girl comes in, she's got 3 foot of hair, and it doesn't really matter that much what you do to it as far as like the layering goes. But no, I've never done this exact haircut on anybody before. Just variations of it. Just made a decision based on, her density, face shape, what she wanted, her lifestyle. That was a light.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Jill asks if the model likes the cut. The model hasn't seen the cut yet.
Say what now?
I haven't seen it.
Jill asked if the model liked the cut, and
Oh,
I
she-
said she hasn't seen it yet.
She's gonna love it. 5-star Yelp review.
Got a Yelper over
I
here.
Yelp my own salon.
Can you do that? Is that fair?
Don't go to Erin. Go to Rachel.
So the more dry it gets, kind of more aggressive I can get with the handling of it. I just want to make sure that the shape kind of sets in before I start really kind of moving it around a bit.
Kayla asked where you got your diffuser.
I'm sorry, what?
Kayla asked where you got your diffuser.
That is a YS Park diffuser
Gentle Giant.
in Japan. You have to go to Japan to get it.
Don't lie to
No, I
them.
think you can order. What?
Don't lie to them.
No, I'm kidding. I think you can order them. I don't know. If you Google YS Park stock diffuser, you'll be able to find them. They're on
You can get them on Hairbrain.
Hairbrain. Yeah. That'll be $12 for that plug if you're watching Hairbrain. Yeah.
Dina asked if our salon has a Facebook page that they can go like.
A Facebook page?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is she gonna try to rate us?
It does. Do you want to?
It's the Creative Studio, and then there's a hyphen, and it's Tulsa, because that's where we're from. Tulsa, Oklahoma.
So again, the V Creative Studio hyphen Tulsa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you, Dina. That's it. So that's for Dina.
Yeah. She's gonna go leave a review.
I still haven't figured out how to enable the reviews on my Facebook page.
Probably best.
Yeah. Probably best having none. I like the idea of people having to like comment a post on there.
What?
They have to like post if they're gonna. Yeah.
We're on the home stretch.
Looking good. Lisa said, the haircut is so cute, edgy, and sassy.
Thank you.
That is Rachel in 2 words.
Oh God.
So I'm using the Privé finishing texture spray. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There we go.
This is probably my go-to. I like this one because you can kind of load it up in the hair and it doesn't really like kind of stick and leave a residue, so you get a really cool texture out of it. So a good hold, but nothing too sticky. And then I can get in and kind of move it around a bit more. My hands. I don't
People
have
are
a mirror, so I
saying
can't
they love
really
it,
see.
doing a great job.
It's always better in a mirror because then I can kind of like look what I'm working on.
Erin says she needs this.
All right, cool. Yeah.
If you want to uncape her so we can show it off with her neck.
Oh, with the neck.
All right, yeah. Go ahead and have stand up and just come up by the wall and you can model.
Let me see. Perfect. Kind of turn. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Woo. Ah, flip. Looks great. All right.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.
Bye.